Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unloaded and Uncovered podcast with me, Magda Desir, your host. Go ahead and follow this podcast on Instagram at Unloaded and Uncovered Podcasts. Definitely follow us on Facebook at Unloaded and Uncovered, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, my channel, Magda, and you will find this upcoming episode under the tab podcast. So subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. So today I have another special guest. Could you tell us who you are?
I'm Melissa, Vera.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. I thank you for joining me today on my podcast. I appreciate that. Lovely to have you here. So, Melissa, why don't you tell the people who you are and what is it that you do?
Okay. Well, first of all, most importantly, I'm a wife. I'm a mom. A mom of 3 adult young ladies. I mean, they're adult now. I mean, my oldest is going to be 30 in 2 years, so it's like freaking me out
Wow.
already. So that's very important. It's also very important to point out that my family is multicultural, a biracial family. My husband is a native of Mexico, and then my daughter ended up marrying a young man who I absolutely adore, who is was born and raised for part of his life in Japan, and so he's part Japanese. So I want to express that thoroughly right there. I am a blogger, a podcaster, everything and anything underneath the sun I've done. I'm actually talking to you from my blog cabin, which is she shed that we purchased and I tooled out with everything that I made from blogging. And so it's like my little office away from home, because I always wanted to have an office outside of home. And I was like, well, 50 feet outside my back steps, that still counts as an office. And so 2018, I took the leap and bought it and paid for everything myself. My husband did all the sweat equity, but I came up with the idea for the designs, and I'm always retweaking and retooling the design as well.
Well, that's cool. A she shed, huh?
I call it my blog cabin. That's why my podcast is called Chats from the Blog Cabin, because people were chatting in the blog cabin.
All right. So what is it? What is your podcast about? You said Chats from the Blog Cabin. Like, what is it about?
It is basically about anything and everything. It's sort of like yours. When I was growing up, I was the youngest of 4 girls, so my voice was not heard often. So I started the podcast as a way to kind of step out of my comfort zone, to get into, it was started during COVID, to get to interact with other people. And I wanted people's voices to be heard. I wanted them to come out and tell their stories, tell what they believe in. Now, I may not necessarily always believe in some of the things that they say, but I can glean at least 1 or 2 items from what they say to say, oh, I've learned something new today. And so that's just, it's just a place where people can have their voices be heard and their stories be told.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the past. Tell us how you grew up. You said you were the youngest of 4 and you felt like your voice was not being heard. Like, when did you figure that out during your childhood?
Very early.
Okay.
There were 4 girls. So my sister Karen and I were the closest in age together. My 2 older sisters were 8 years and 7 years older, so they kind of had a different set of parents than we did. My dad was gone a lot when my 2 older sisters, because he was in the Marine Corps, and he was gone a lot when my 2 older sisters were born. So my mom bonded with them, and then my dad bonded with my younger sister and I. I mean, not my sister younger than them and I, because he was home more often. But it just felt like every time I would say something, I would just kind of get pushed away, and nothing would ever be said. And I can remember one conversation, and actually defined the way I looked at myself for a long, I'm talking up until like my 50s, long time. I was like I want to say 6 or 7 years old, around that time frame. And we were at a vacation Bible school thing, and it was family night, and my mom and my sister were there. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so pretty, you're a 6 and 7-year-old, you're just like, I'm so pretty, da da da." And my
Yeah.
sister's like, "She doesn't need to say that. She needs to be modest." And I'm like, "Okay." And then she says, "Well, maybe she does need to say that because nobody will ever call her pretty in her lifetime."
Oh,
And my
your
mom
sister said
agreed.
that?
My sister said that, and my mom agreed with her.
Oh, that is vile. Are you? Wow. Okay, keep going. That's
And
crazy.
throughout my life that defined me. I didn't have the courage to step out of my comfort zone for the long
Hmm.
time because I
Yeah,
was so scared of that rejection of things coming back at me. So I'm like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do it. And something happened when I turned 50 and I'm like, screw that. I don't care what anybody says about me anymore. I'm going to live my life without regrets. And I
that
started
part.
celebrating. I mean, it would be at the point where I would say something and my mom would say something that was like a little bit of rejection or like say something that put a little bit of fear in my mind and I wouldn't do it. So I decided that, I was going to go. Had the opportunity to go with a friend of mine ziplining and I'm deathly afraid of heights, but I was like, I'm going. I didn't tell anybody I was going besides my immediate family, my husband and my girls. I was up there, I was shaking like a leaf and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And my friend's like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm like, no, I cannot do this. And she's like, yes, you can. Just jump and go. Close your eyes and jump. So I closed my eyes, and my faith is huge for me. So I closed my eyes and I prayed, God, if you're going to take me, make it quick. And I jumped off that platform and I just went down luckily, it was one of the ones that already had a brake. So I didn't have to worry about breaking myself. So I think if I
Okay.
had to break myself, I would have run into the tree, obviously. But
Yeah.
literally, the guy that was coming, helping us get off so the next person could go, I was shaking. He literally had to hold me up because my legs were rubber. But from that point on, I could do it. I could do it. I knew that I could do it. And I was like, I'm not going to let anybody else define. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to let anybody else tell me I can't.
As you should. You're absolutely right. You should never ever let someone define who you are, your value, your
Hmm.
worth, and things like that. So based off of what you had just told me, did you at one point feel like yourself, like your mother and your sister made your self worth so low to the point where you were just like, I don't think that I deserve love? Like,
Yep.
how did you move from that to finding your husband?
I do not know. I think God sent my husband to me because I'm in North Carolina. He is from Mexico. And how would a boy from Mexico and a girl from North Carolina meet up and end up getting married and having three beautiful girls? I do not know. I honestly think he had to really work hard on me. I knew when I saw him, it's one of those hallmark, I always say one of those hallmark moments, where immediately that that's the person you're supposed to be with.
Yeah.
And I knew. I mean, we started dating in May. By December we were engaged, and by April we were married.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's less than a year.
less than a year.
Wow, that's a quick turnaround. So
Yeah.
even though you knew he was the one, why did you make him work for it? Because it sounds like to me you're like, I knew he was the one, but he had to work on me. So what does that mean?
It's all that negative that was poured into me as
Mm,
a child, is all that, I couldn't go to my mom and talk to her about things. Even when we were like, and this is gonna sound kind of disgusting, but even when I was going through the in my first period, I didn't know anything. I was on a school trip and I just looked down and I was wearing white pants and I had no idea what was going on. She had never talked to me about that because in her generation, they didn't talk about things. Kids were
yeah,
seen and not heard. And
right.
so I vowed that when I started having girls, that my immediate family and my girls, because I have three, were
Right.
going to be important to me, and I wanted to have the relationship where they could come and talk to me about anything. And
Okay.
it kind of was like full circle. My oldest daughter lives in California now, and I only get to see her every once in a while. But she told me that when I was out there visiting, she's like, "Mama, I don't think of you as my mom." And I was like, "What?" Really like taken aback a minute. She's like, "No, let me finish." She's like, "I don't think of you as my mom because I really don't need a mom right now. I'm pretty grown. Every once in a while you do need your mom." She said, "But I think of you as my friend who happens to be my mom." And I was like,
Oh,
I've done my job then. I've done my job.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful because there's a lot of people, including me, who don't really have the best relationship with their mother. And I know that especially for me, working through like compassion and love and being kind and forgiving, it's a really, really hard thing to do. It's a continuous um it's a continuous steep learning curve in life
Hmm.
because there's a lot of things that happen for you for example in terms of your childhood with your mother and sister and how they put a lot of self negative talk into you.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful to see that you turned it around because that was very, very, very important for you when you had your daughters. You're like, you know what? I'm not going to do what my mother and my sister did to me. I want to pour into my daughters because I believe that, we learn about self worth from our parents. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Especially girls. We learn it from our mothers and
Hmm.
we also learn it from our fathers. But it sounds like you have a very, very loving and trusting relationship between yourself and your daughters. Now, knowing that your daughter considers you as a friend, you know what I mean? She knows that you are her mother, but she considers you as a friend. What is something that you can tell people like myself when they're working through issues with their own mother and not being able to, extend that compassion, extend that love, and extend that forgiveness towards them? And they're trying to, but they're battling because their mother is still being negative. You know what I mean? They're still
Hmm.
spewing all that negative thoughts and negative talks towards them. What is one thing that you could tell somebody to do?
Honestly, I would say distance.
Mm,
Be available. Tell them, hey, I love you. I'm here if you need me. But for my mental health and my emotional well being, I have to put you at arm's length right now because I can't. I'm trying to create this atmosphere of positivity, and every time you say something negative, I ended up having to do that with my mom toward the
mm,
end of her life. I mean, I just said, you know what? I can't. I can't be the scapegoat. I can't be the one that always is everybody finds a problem with when all I'm doing is just trying to live my best life. It was
right.
like, I love you. I'm here if you need me. Because she would call me in the middle of the night when she needed something. But as far as the day to day goes, I just could not physically be there because I would find myself digging myself deeper and deeper into that negative self doubt. So I was like, once you establish boundaries, it helps a lot.
Got it.
And if they
Was
don't understand the boundaries, then, you can just pray for them and say, God, change me or change them. But you have to have those boundaries in place or they'll walk and run right over you.
was that hard to set that boundary at first?
Yes, it was. And I still think even toward the end of her life, it was hard because she was like, I don't know what I did. People, they don't understand when they've hurt
Yeah,
somebody. And
yeah.
that's one of the things that I tried with my girls. And like the other couple months ago, my middle daughter actually came up and was telling me something that happened in her childhood. And I couldn't remember it happening. But instead of telling her, oh, you're remembering this wrong, or like not validating her feelings, I looked at her and I said, I don't recall this happening. But if it did, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And I think that's the biggest thing is when parents need to say I'm sorry to their
yeah,
kids. And my mom wasn't willing to admit fault with anything that happened. It was like, no, everything was my fault. And I'm like, no, everything is not my fault.
yeah,
There's things that need to be said and done. And she wasn't willing. Anytime I brought anything up, she would just get mad or slam the phone down. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't.
yeah, yeah. So with that, did you also, contact your sister, especially the one that told you that you should be modest, and you told her how you felt and all of this? How did that conversation go?
My sister is like my mom. She doesn't hear me.
Oh no.
Yeah. Even when there was a situation happened with another one of my sisters that passed away, and she had wanted me to contact her husband about getting her moved, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. And after my mom died, she was like, well, I'm gonna go get her moved, get her grave moved up to mom, and I was like, all right, that's on you. And then in the conversation later on, I looked right at her and I said, it is up to you. I'm fine if she gets moved. I'm fine if she doesn't get moved. I don't want anything to do with it. And not even 10 seconds out of my mouth after I said that, did she turn around and say, well, you're the one that's going to have to contact. I'm like, did you not just hear what I said? I don't want any part of it. She didn't listen.
And I see it now because you said ever since you were young, no one actually listened to you. And it's just
Uh-huh.
like, you really cut that umbilical cord. Like you cut that umbilical cord from your family. And I'm you know what's interesting? I just had a conference over the weekend to where they were talking about cutting the umbilical cord with the people in your life, especially like, your parents and things like that. And I'm not kidding you. I don't know, maybe it's God, but literally this happened on Saturday and now we're sitting here talking about cutting the umbilical. Like
Mm-hmm.
obviously God is like, hey, knucklehead, listen, you're gonna have to cut the umbilical. Like this is for me. Like this message is clearly for me because I am. When I tell you I am battling with that, cutting the umbilical cord, and then just like you, when I tell my parents, hey, this had happened to me, I didn't like it, it's always, well, I don't remember, or that didn't happen. Or if something did happen, they know that it happened. However, as you said, it was my fault. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, how can a child be at fault for your neglect? Which
Yep.
makes no sense to me. But I think with this conversation that we're having and then the conference that I attended over the weekend, it's clear as day. God is like, hello, sis, I need you to cut the umbilical cord from your parents and live your best life.
Yep.
And when you started living your best life at the age of 50, what did that feel like? Like, give us the all of the adjectives that you can describe on how that felt.
Scary.
Okay.
Relief. No. Honestly, I would say within the last couple of years, no judgment. I didn't feel like there was judgment. It was funny because I had a conversation with my youngest daughter. She's 21, right after my mom died. My mom just passed in August. And
Oh,
I
my
looked at her
condolences.
and I was like, I don't feel like I felt when my dad died. I mean, I was my dad's girl. I mean, I was everything of my dad. My dad would stop by and see us. He'd made a point. If he hadn't heard from us, he would come by. It wasn't just a
Right.
one-way thing. And so I said, I feel like I'm grieving differently than I did with Grampy, is what I told her. And she's looking at me and she's like, Mama, you're grieving the way that you felt, the way you feel. She said, don't judge that because you had a different relationship with Grampy than you did with Nana. And she said, and I can see why you grieved because you were closer to Grampy. And Grampy, you knew if he picked up the phone and you say, I need you, he would be there. With my mom, if I picked up the phone and said, I need you, if my sister needed her first, she would go to my sister and would never, come to me unless my dad was with her. And I was like, I almost felt like when she died, it was like, I don't want to say, because I love my mom, don't get me wrong. I loved her. She was my mom. She gave birth to me. But it was like a huge, like, I don't know, bit of relief off my shoulders to know
Yeah.
that I don't have to deal with that day to day. Like, I was on a podcast this past weekend, Good Grief podcast, and I told her, like, when the phone rang and I look over and I would see my mom, I'm like, oh God, what does she want now? That type of thing. But
Right.
now it's like, I miss her calling. But every time she
Right.
called, she either wanted us to do something for her or she
Right.
needed something. It was never, hey,
Right.
I'm calling just to check and see how you're doing. Whereas my
Right.
dad, if he hadn't heard from us in a while, he would drive by and stop and come in and maybe spend 10, 15 minutes, but she would never drive by just to stop and visit.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I can understand that. However, my mother is still here, but I feel I I feel you. I empathize and sympathize with you in terms of like feeling that sense of relief. Because I'm sure, again, I don't know how many people have the best relationship with their mother, but I can I don't know how I will be when my mother transitions, but I have a feeling when you were talking, I was like, yeah, she has like a sense of relief. The weight was lifted off of her shoulder. She felt like she did what she could with the time that she had with her mother. And the only thing that she could do was just move forward.
Hmm.
Now, in terms of all of that, did you ever like tap into therapy or anything like that when you were dealing with your parents?
I have a lot of great friends that are like mental health counselors that I could go to
Okay.
and just talk to, and they would just like, have conversations with me. Friends are great, especially when you have friends who have issues with their moms, or friends who have gone through that or have gone through similar situations that they can kind of
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm going to listen to you. And then maybe if you want advice, because a lot of times I think friends kind of insert themselves in situations and
Yeah.
try to give you advice when you really don't want it. You just want someone to listen to you.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. And how did your husband support you through all this?
Um, oh my gosh, he's amazing. He's tired. He was tired. He's like, I'm so tired of hearing about this. I said, you and me both. I'm so tired of this. And he would say, because he would go over and he would mow my mom's grass. And like my mom would call sometimes when she needed help around the house after my dad passed. And she would expect him right at 5 o'clock to be there. And I'm like,
Oh
he
yeah.
doesn't get off work till 5 or 6. It just depends. And it just depends on how nasty he is when he comes home, if he's going to be able to change anything. I said,
Right.
but he understood. He did not fault me any for not wanting to go over there when he went. Every once in a while, I would go with him just to say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm showing my face," da 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 this. But other than that, he was really great as far as just being there for me and being there for the girls. And never once did I ever tell the girls, you can't have a relationship with your nana or you can't have a relationship with your aunt. I always said, my issues are my issues. I'm
Yeah.
not going to let you deal with it. But now they see things now because they've seen things the way I've been treated. I've been treated like that all along, but now that they're young adults, they see it more and they understand better why I feel that way. But I never once stopped them to say, hey, you can't be this and you can't do this.
Right. So do you think that piggybacking off a little bit earlier when you said that your mother was raised in the era where children were seen and not heard, do you think she was projecting the things that she had experienced in her childhood towards you? Um, because I don't know, I might be wrong. I don't know if she told you about her life or anything like that. Because my mother doesn't tell me about her life. I can hear it in passing, like if she's on the phone or she'll mention something, and then when I come in the room, she's just like, well, "Let me be quiet." Like, do you think that what your mother was doing to you, it actually happened to her in the
I,
past?
I honestly do. I honestly think. And that's why I said, okay, that's why I give her grace. And I'm saying, because I understand that's the way she was brought up. She was
Right.
brought up that, this, and you went this, and so with my girls, I wanted it so that they could come to me and talk to me about anything because
Okay.
I just felt like I felt left out basically. And
Yeah.
for the longest time, I felt like I actually was not wanted. I actually felt like my dad wanted me, but my mom never wanted me.
Oh, that's sad. That has got to hurt.
Hmm.
That really, really has got to hurt. That is so sad. I'm so sorry. Whew. Melissa, that was, yeah. I do love the fact that you were able to extend grace and show compassion towards your mother. Um, and this is, again, something for me to learn and something for me to take in and to work on for myself, because I believe what I'm hearing, you've also shown and given grace and compassion to yourself. And that work that you've done is tremendously beautiful. And I wish you could just like kind of like send that energy towards my way so I could do the same for myself.
It
I
took a long while. I mean, the youngest daughter and I, we have lots of conversations. And one day we were coming back from a trip, and I was talking about, Gracie, have I changed a lot in the last couple of years? And she's like, yes, Mama, you have. You used to be whiny, you used to be this, you used to be that, but now it's like, okay, now I'm not like that because I've learned, number one, to listen. I've worked hard on myself. Not to say that I don't every once in a while go back and say, huh, if it's not my way, we're not doing it. That's my mom. If it wasn't her way,
yeah,
she didn't want anything to do with it.
I
And
get
so
it.
I was like, the world does not work like that.
It
And
doesn't.
so I learned that from my mom, that if it didn't, if it's not her way, then nobody was going to do it. We weren't going to do anything. And that's my whole attitude for the longest time. Then I was like, no, that's not the way life is. And that's when I
Yeah,
started backtracking. I mean, every once in a while, when I'm in a bad mood, it will go back that way. But for the
it
most
happens.
part, I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago.
That's amazing. Wow, it took 10 years to reach that, to reach this point.
Yep.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. And I noticed from what I'm hearing and I'm seeing, I noticed that you worked hard not to do what was done to you to your daughters.
Yep.
Like I can hear that. Like, yeah, that's a pivotal point in your journey. You were like, listen, I have these girls. I don't want my girls to feel some type of way because I was treated that way. I don't want to do that. I don't want to inflict this type of pain onto my daughters. So I'm going to make sure that I do the work that is necessary for
Hmm.
me to show my daughters, to show my daughters how to be a better person and how to take what I went through and transform it into something positive, which is
Hmm.
great. And I love the fact that you have a very amicable and loving relationship with your daughters. Because there's a lot of women out here that wish that they can have that with their mom. That little girl inside is just wishing, like, oh, I wish me and my mom were my best friend. I wish me and my mom would go shopping and have lunch and things like that. You know what I mean? Call up your mom and tell her, like, hey, I'm dating this guy, or hey, I got situations going on. Can you give me some advice? That's
Hmm.
beautiful. That is so, so beautiful. I love it. I love this. I love this for you. I really do. Like, you have shown me what it is to give compassion and to give love to those that have hurt you, even
Hmm.
though you know you didn't deserve it. And you also turned it around and showed that to yourself and to your family, like your husband and your daughters and close friends and things like that. I love this. That is such a beautiful story, Melissa. Oh my gosh. I'm excited. I'm excited for me. I'm excited for me because I'm going to take these gems and I'm going to apply it to my life. I'm so excited. I love that. I totally love that. Now, so tell us. So what do you do now? Like since you've, done the work, all this, what excites Melissa? Like what does Melissa do now?
What don't I do? Oh, let's see. Let's just say, to begin with, I never would have thought when I bought this blog cabin that I would be hosting, doing chats in the blog cabin where I'm talking to people, because I was an elementary school teacher and I could get in front of kids all day long, and my creativity, everything, imagination would go off, get me in front of a group of my peers, and no, forget it. I was shaking, and like now it's like old hat. Like I'm like, I can do this. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, got to the point where I did chats in the blog cabin, was just doing the audio version, and now it's the YouTube, the visual version on YouTube.
You're
And
doing the same.
then last March, April, May, I was approached by Market.live to do the DIY show, which is a live DIY show on their channel. It's a home shopping like type of show. And
Right.
so I am doing a DIY show with Market.live. Never would have thought I would ever be doing that because of the self confidence of feeling like I wasn't worthy, that my appearance, everything was like, and now I'm doing it.
I'm doing the same thing. I was audio at first, and then this year I was like, I'm gonna tap into the video portion of it and just like put it out there because I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll see. So I was doing the same thing you were. I was like audio for like a year and a half or so, and I took breaks in between. But this year I was like, we got to put ourselves out there, girl. We got to do this. So
Hmm.
I love to see that. So where can people find you? Like, what's your website, social handles, all that good stuff?
Okay, my website is adventuresfrugalmom.com. It's Adventures of Frugal Mom, but it's adventuresfrugalmom.com. It is a blog, it's a lifestyle blog. It started out as a
Oh,
deals and coupon blog, and that's where everything started and everything flowed from there. On Instagram, you can find me Frugal Mom. Adventures of Frugal Mom on Facebook. YouTube is Chats from the Blog Cabin, that's the channel. And then you
got
can
it.
find me on market.live. You can just look at market.live and it'll come up to a portal, and you can just type in the DIY show and you can find me there.
So how many episodes have you done on the market.live show?
10, because we took a break
Wow.
for December and January, and now we're going to come back in February.
Wow, you've done 10?
Yeah, done
Oh,
10 shows.
that is definitely stepping outside of your comfort zone.
And my whole point with these DIYs is showing, how most of the time when you're watching a Home and Garden Network or you're watching anything, you're thinking, I can't do that. That's
Yeah,
way too complicated. My crafts are something that you can do within 30 minutes, and it's something that you can put up using something that you may buy at the store and making it unique for
right,
yourself. And you can give it as a gift to somebody or use it decor for somebody else. I mean, someplace like if you go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's or someplace like that, the
right.
craft, the item may be $40, $50, where I show you how you can make it for less than 20.
Oh, I need to tap in and see this. I definitely have to tap in to see that yeah, let me go find you after this interview and go see what you put together. It sounds very, very creative. So anybody can do it. Doesn't matter if it's stay at home mom, stay at home dad, kids. It's
Mm-hmm.
for everyone, huh?
Yeah, and I try to do it on the show. Try to, if the craft is a little complicated, try to show, because of the elementary teacher and me, try to show them something that your kids can do alongside you, so that while you're crafting, they can craft, so they're not like
Yeah.
interrupting you and like, wait, where was I at? Because it's not something that takes a lot of steps. I mean, I took just a regular doily that you would see, and I made a dream catcher out of it using embroidery hoop and ribbon.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, I'm gonna check this out. I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna tap into it. Yeah, definitely. But Melissa, thank you so much for coming onto my podcast and sharing your story and sharing your journey and then turning it into something so beautiful and so loving and kind and full of compassion. Like I'm got all the loves here. I'm feeling it. So thank
Well,
you
thank
for
you for
sharing.
having me.
Oh, most definitely. Not a problem. Thank you for sharing. And again, guys, thanks for watching and also listening. If you're listening on Spotify or wherever you hear or listen to podcasts, do not forget to follow us on Instagram at Unloaded Uncovered Podcast, Facebook, like and follow the page Unloaded and Uncovered. And also, do not forget to subscribe to my channel, Magna Desir, where you will find all podcast interviews under the tab Podcasts. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.